Chris,
Hey, Dane,
thanks for doing this. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So this is going to be the first in-person, face-to-face interview that we've done for this podcast.
Live in the field.
Yeah, literally live in a field.
Completely unscripted, no less. Yeah, that's right. We are in a field.
We're literally in a field. We're playing an outdoor show today in Philberg
or something.
Something like that.
It's outside of Frankfurt. Outside.
Philberg. Something like that.
Is that it? Let's check Master Tour. You would think we'd know this, but
No.
we have an app.
It's bad something. Well, you have
Touring world.
You're more professional than me.
Bad Philberg. There's our schedule.
So, Chris, for anyone who isn't already aware, Christopher, yes.
I'm one of those guys.
You're Christopher.
One of
Sorry.
those guys.
Christopher.
Sorry.
Which is good because I've had a lot of Chris's on the show recently, so it's nice to have a Christopher. Plays drums in Accept. We're currently on tour. Savoy and Judas Priest. We've been on tour last year. We did a month together.
Yeah, we did. That was a blast.
Well, I only did 2 weeks of it. That's another story. But
Well, we did. That was 6 weeks.
you did 6 weeks. Well, maybe it was
The tour was 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks.
I did about 2.5 weeks of that tour.
Yeah.
And I had another guy filling in for me.
Paul, shout out, which we actually just saw him in, was it Portugal?
Oh, nice.
No, not Portugal. It was in Spain.
Was it that Z Fest?
Yeah, we did Z Live in Spain.
Z Live, that was it, yeah.
We ran into him backstage.
So Paul is drum tech for the Crazy band. Well, I think they're crazy. A lot of you guys might not think they're that crazy, but it's power metal Ailstorm.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a giant inflatable duck on stage.
Which actually takes up most of the stage.
Yeah.
I think the drums are off to either side, right?
Yeah, so the duck is the main event.
And it's not just a duck, it's a giant inflatable rubber ducky.
Yeah.
Like you would have in a bathtub as a kid, you know, as a child.
That's exactly what it is. And I think Paul has a lot of fun being on tour with that band. I do want to get him on the show at some point. We will do that. He's very busy because he drums in multiple bands himself. I think he techs. I think Ailstorm is his main tech job, but I think he does a few other things. But he also raps. He dresses up like a shark and does a rap for one of their songs, apparently.
Huh.
So he's also a performer.
All right.
And a drum tech. But anyway.
Well, I can say he did you justice when he was filling for you.
Yeah, he's like...
He's a hard hitter, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. It's kind of weird when someone... He's slightly different player to me, but I know he's so good. It's kind of nerve-wracking going back into my position knowing he's so good.
My gig?
If it wasn't a band full of my own family, I would seriously be worried about that.
I'd sit there and watch him play, and it reminded me of like Eloy Casagrande, you know, like that power hitter. And I'm going, man, like I hit hard, but that dude makes me want to go lift weights.
Yeah. I know, because he's physically quite big, isn't he? Yeah. And you can tell he lifts weights.
Yeah.
He must do. Well, lots of
breaking sticks left and right.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
But that was fun. And we talked about doing this interview. I think we stayed up till like 4 a.m. in a hotel drinking in Poland.
Pretty much.
I remember that night.
That happens. That was when we went to the Hard Rock, wasn't it?
Yeah. You went to Hard Rock.
Somewhere toward the end there.
Yeah, that was fun.
I'm going to pull my hair back,
which
is very un-rockstar-like, but for those of you watching or listening, it is hot.
It is, yeah, I think.
Out here. And a lot of these festivals, they put you in these shipping containers that have been converted into dressing rooms.
Yes, which we're in now. So we're in our dressing room right now, and it is hot. I think it's like 29, 30 degrees Celsius outside. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
It's 90-ish.
Yes.
Or just over 90.
That's pretty hot for June.
Yeah, for June especially. I mean, we'll get 105 Fahrenheit, which is probably 35 to 40 Celsius. We'll get that in August back home, plus all the humidity, but it's too early for that.
I know. Anyway,
it's only mid-June.
Yeah, it's crazy. And obviously you live in Nashville, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so...
Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee is pretty much like a hip-hop happening place for musicians.
Yep. All kinds of music coming out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rock and metal guys that I know live there. So you're one of them.
Everybody realized it was cheaper than LA or New York, so they sold their houses and bought land and built mini mansions.
Yeah, I don't blame them. It sounds a lot better than where I live in Wales, which is fine, but a little bit less exciting than Nashville, Tennessee. I was lucky enough I think we did 5 nights, me and my wife, before we had our kid, and yeah, we had a great time. But it was only a little taster. But I'd love to go back one day. But
if you do, let me know.
Oh,
even if I'm not home, I can put you with my wife, and she'll show you, or whoever's around, and
amazing.
Take you to where the locals go. Because I'm sure you guys did Neon Lights, the Lower Broadway tourist district.
We kind of did all
There's way cooler spots than that.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I would love to go back, and it's definitely on the list of places that I do actually want to go back. So, where did you come from before you moved to Nashville then?
So I was born in a city called Greensboro in North Carolina.
Right.
And just shortly before my 12th birthday, the family moved to South Carolina, to Greenville. So that gets a bit confusing for people because Greensboro, Greenville. Then there's also a Greenville, North Carolina, which just makes it even weirder. But so Greensboro was home, and all a lot of my youth. But then the formative years, the teenage years, where you're really discovering who you are and learning to drive and joining bands and actually going out and gigging. All that was in South Carolina.
Nice.
And then it was shortly after I turned 22, I think is when I moved to Nashville.
All right. So that's a pretty young time to do it. And how old were you when you started playing the drums?
My mother has stories of me playing drums in the womb. She and not just kicking, but she and my father would put on records. Yeah. And I'd kick with the song, and then the song would end, and I would stop kicking. That reminds me of when my wife was pregnant. I remember we were playing all this soothing music, and then which song was it? It was like the Dio era Black Sabbath came on in the car. Like or something, yeah.
And her belly was like, this guy,
I like that.
He's gonna like Dio. So that was a cool moment.
That's
and I
beautiful.
said, we have to keep playing Black Sabbath in the house because, I'm big into that stuff. My wife loves rock music, but not so much the classic rock kind of metal stuff.
It's when you just put the headphones on her stomach.
Yeah.
Do that thing.
But okay. So that obviously then you're destined to be a drummer in a metal band.
I mean, I was kind of all I ever wanted to do was just play drums. It wasn't so much. I mean, my first paying gigs, I had a jazz quartet that would go out half of the school day. I went to an art school, so I was timpanist, orchestral snare drummer, all of the classical percussion, music theory, AP theory. But there was a jazz guitar class. And they needed a drummer to come out and sit in a couple days a week. So I would go over and play with them. And local businesses, whether it was a bank for their Christmas party or some function, they would call the school and hire out a band. Whether it was the jazz group or like a string quartet that they had or a vocal group or something, they would contact the school. And we would go out, 15 years old probably, and get paid a couple $100 each. Just show up in a suit and tie and sit back and play jazz standards out of the real book, and
nice.
And the cool thing though was it wasn't just like your high school pop jazz band. You had to audition to get into that school. Those kids were badasses on their instruments.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
So that was cool. And then I had a rock band that was just mostly doing, 70s stuff. And I would sing like Hendrix or Zeppelin and stuff.
Nice.
And we'd go out. There was this private members only pub right outside of downtown. And somehow the owner let us play. I remember our parents came with us and signed us up for membership. And like the guitar player's dad would stay there the whole gig. But yeah, we were 16 by that point, playing in a little pub. And I just remember where they set us up, there were these two kind of columns or pillars coming down from the ceiling, like roof supports, with tables permanently built around them. And I had to set my drum set up in between them. Whoa. So there's like this much room to put up a kit in a rock and roll band.
Yeah, that's difficult, yeah.
But man, it was a blast. So I was doing that with the jazz band. I had the rock band. And then one of the guys I went to the normal high school with the other half of the day turned me on to Slipknot and, Pantera and all kinds of that stuff. And then we started a band and got my brother in on bass because he's a bass player.
Cool.
Shout out Travis. And his buddy was a guitarist and all this stuff. So it was weird, just all three of those things at once, and then played in an orchestra after school doing timpani. So it was non-stop. Whatever it is, I want to play it. Whether it's jazz and fusion, big band, swing, death metal, punk, funk. My first touring gig was with a 7-piece funk band with a horn section.
I bet that was fun.
It was great. And we had a percussionist that would go from guitar. He was the front man of the band. He would be out front playing guitar, then he would jump back on percussion and we'd jam or we'd swap off. He had 2 sets of timbales, so at the end of the show, we'd each grab a set and go out into the crowd and do this drum battle thing. But we were opening up for Parliament Funkadelic and Fishbone and the Abbott Brothers and groups like that. And then you've got the metal band at home. It's the weirdest thing to look back on, but any kind of music, I was into it.
That's always the best way, and that's one thing I kind of regret is I enjoy lots of different types of music, but I've not had much experience playing anything other than rock.
Right. Well,
a little bit. Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Well, yeah. But, I think that all helps. Being a musician is playing those different styles, and it opens you up to, like you can tell watching you, like you feel so comfortable out there when I watch you play with Accept. You're just having so much fun. And
I love it. I just want to play drums for people.
Yeah. It shows. It does show, because there's lots of other drummers out there that don't look like they're having fun on stage, and that really grinds my gears. Even if even if it's easy, like you should be enjoying it.
You should be having fun. I mean, it's like, even if Lady Gaga called me I would jump on that in a heartbeat, because it's drum music. It's dancing.
Yeah.
And if you watch, like, when we're playing something like Princess of the Dawn or the one of the newer songs like Straight Up Jack, even though it's Phil Rudd the whole time, but I'm dancing on the kit. I have a hydraulic seat bass because I bounce so much that when I used to use like the standard spirals, I actually pinched some nerves in my back years and years ago.
Wow.
Because bouncing.
Wow. Yeah, because I guess things are contracting and
And I had one of the old school butt kickers, like the big heavy so it's punching up as I'm bouncing down, but it's like, you should be dancing up there. I don't care whether it's metal, rock, hip hop, like whatever, man. It's a beat. It connects with the heart,
And that's our job is to make that connection, to get the crowd moving.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if they see that the band are enjoying it and moving, they're more likely to reciprocate.
Absolutely. Even in you watch jazz drummers, old school dudes, Philly Joe Jones and guys like that. They're playing straight ahead and they're dancing across the kit, but you see the body movements laying into that crash, or even though it's not danceable music.
I think anything with a beat.
You can still, you feel it,
And when you mentioned some of the tracks there, was it 2015 you joined Accept?
Yeah.
Around then?
Yeah.
So how do you approach, when you play the older songs, do you try and play them like the originals, or do you try and put your own spin on them a little bit? Or?
It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
you know, like when I first joined and we were rehearsing some of the older songs, there were certain parts that, you know, Wolf and Peter wanted to get rid of.
Oh, right.
Like,
okay. That's interesting.
Restless and Wild in the bridge, there's that drum fill in the middle. Stay downtown, welcome, ba da 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 da, diggity ding, diggity 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 boom. That little, they're like, can you get rid of that? We've never liked that. Because Stephen Kaufman was a huge Cozy Powell head, like major into him. So there's, in a lot of the older Accept stuff, there's all these kind of offbeat things that would throw those two off.
Fair enough, yeah.
And my argument was absolutely not. It's staying in because that's what people out there are air drumming.
They expect it, yeah. You see a good portion of the crowd air drumming those parts.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, you know, in music I've played and stuff, and it's made me feel really good. I'm like, I didn't realize those little parts were so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen like lead singers of other bands on the scene. They're not drummers, air drum the parts. I've written, which I didn't really think were that significant. So I agree with you there.
So there were moments like that, but then there was other stuff where, you know, there'd just be a fill that didn't really need to be there. It was just there because.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's like, okay, well, we need to give it some breath and set it up for the next segment that we're going into, but we don't have to play a classic drum fill. What if we do just let it hang? Like Shadow Soldiers. I think it's going into the first verse, or like the back half of the first verse, I think. But we do exactly that. We, instead of doing like the record is boom doom ta do blah da da we're like, no, what if we just let that hang and the whoosh, bring it back almost like a whip crack. So boom, doom, boom, you know, and hesitate that downbeat just a little bit more. And it just,
cool.
It hits so much harder. So
little
choices like that, or, you know, if I'm noticing Mark is singing a different pattern vocally than what was on the record, I'll line up and do kicks with him.
Yeah.
You know, little China cymbals or accents or just adding little things, but not stepping on toes, you know, because we play a support instrument, ultimately.
That's ultimately what I've always said. And like the name of this podcast is called Drum for the Song.
Oh,
I don't know if you knew that, but
No.
So I'm all about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like obviously my band is a guitar-based band.
Yeah.
And vocals, and I'm just the guy in the back hoping, and I'll try and be as steady as I possibly can.
Count I'm not perfect and hope it works.
I'm not perfect, but totally. I think that's cool. Sometimes taking things away works better, especially in a live setting.
Yeah, and I mean, but then there's other stuff you can do too, like live. Some of the fills I'll double with the kick drums underneath the toms. Digga 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 boom. Just to get it fat, because you know it's coming through a big PA and it's going to hit people in the chest.
Yes.
Whereas on a record, it'd probably muddy it up.
Yeah,
so best to keep maybe just you know, something like that. But
that's a really good bit of advice, really, for drummers that listen to this, because a recording situation is totally different to a live situation.
Very, very different.
And when you're playing, you know, bigger rooms, bigger venues, when the PA is massive. Luckily, we get to do that sometimes.
Well, there's that, and it's no different. I mean, the same concept applies to your gear too.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not taking a 24-inch giant ride cymbal into the studio. I can get away with it live.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
Studio is a different animal.
Yeah, I choose to use different cymbals and things like that in the studio.
Yeah.
And I even use different cymbals depending on what kind of gig I'm doing. Like I've always got a spare bag with me, and sometimes I've got slightly bigger crashes, maybe a drier ride depending on which set list we're playing. So I am conscious of that as well.
Yeah.
But I've just played so many small club shows, and the front of house guys like, is there any way we can dampen your cymbals? And like, I don't really want to put tape on them.
No. I'll switch to lighter sticks, or I'll just try and pull back.
Yeah.
But
so sometimes I'll, instead of using a 19 and a 20, I'll use like an 18 and a 19. and maybe
it makes a difference.
It does make a difference, yeah. Slightly. And I've actually switched recently to, I don't know how familiar, I know you use Sabian. I'm using Paiste. Mm-hmm. So I've switched to the 900 series, which is like a mid-range.
Yeah.
But
I've got one of the Megabell 900s.
Yeah, it's great, and like they sound great and mic'd up. They don't sound like cheap cymbals at all.
But they're toned down a little bit too.
Yes, they're not quite as bright. I think the sustain is slightly shorter than like the 2002s that I've been using for many years. So I guess a show like tonight is probably not going to make much difference. But when we play a little club show tomorrow, which we are doing, they'll make a difference, I think.
Yeah.
With a small ceiling and... Hi, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Drum for the Song. I just wanted to briefly interrupt the interview to tell you about my Patreon page, which is a place where you can support the podcast and, of course, support myself. You can sign up to one of the 3 tiers on there. There's one that's £3 a month, one that is £5 a month, and one that is £10 a month. There are loads and loads of exclusive benefits to signing up, including bonus episodes, merch discounts, Christmas card for myself. If you sign up to the top tier, I'll send you a pair of my drumsticks. Loads of other stuff. So go check it out. It's patreon.com/drum for the song. And another way you could support me if you're interested, if you're not bothered about the Patreon thing, if you go to my official website, drumforthesong.com, you can send a donation via PayPal. So, thanks for watching this and enjoy the rest of the show.
Drum for the Song podcast.
I've got my dark cymbal set, because like you said, I'm Sabian, so I've got a set of HHX Complex.
Oh yeah,
is what they call it. And I've got the thin crashes, the medium ride, the thin hats. And, I've got other darker cymbals that'll kind of mix into that. And a lot of times that's what I'm using when I record, because I'm set up at the house to track.
Cool.
So a lot of times I'll use that. But then live, I come out and it's all medium weights. So like the Complex, if I go out as like 17 and a 19 versus with this rig, 1919, 2020.
Yeah.
And medium weight, brilliant. So the cuts, but they're durable, but they don't sound like a lot of heavy cymbals get clangy.
Yeah.
And I tend to break thin cymbals and heavy cymbals. I've found the mediums are just durable enough where they still flex, but because a lot of people don't realize like the heavy cymbals, they're higher in pitch, so they cut more, but they're stiffer. So they're a lot more like, for me anyway, what I've noticed is they're a lot likelier to snap. And same with thins. They'll flex a lot, but depending what kind of music you're playing. So I have different cymbals for live. I've got my dark cymbals that I can take out. But then I also have, I love, the raw bell stuff from Sabian, the AAX.
Yeah.
And because they're like a medium thin-ish, so you can wash on them and they break up and open up. But I don't play them live because I love them so much. And when I started out, I was breaking them left and right.
Yes,
and,
I know what you mean.
And Stanky, the dude, the man, Chris Stanky at Sabian, he's like, yeah, man, so you might want to think about getting some thicker stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay. Well, so then those got retired to, home use and recording. And then the big shows are the heavier cymbals.
Nice.
So you just have to find what works for you in what situation. And I know it's hard for a lot of musicians out there, because cymbals are not cheap.
No, exactly.
They are not cheap. You might be able to get away with having 2 or 3 snare drums in your collection for the bulk of what you're doing. But cymbals, trying to find a cymbal that does this gig and that one and that one and that one, that can get difficult.
Yeah, and we're lucky. I don't pay full price. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
You probably get yours free. I don't know, but I don't get them free.
They take good care of it.
Yeah.
We'll put it down.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not completely free all the time.
No,
they do take care of us.
Yeah, that's good. So we're lucky we get to experiment a little bit more than maybe someone that does.
Absolutely.
Paying £400 for a ride cymbal in the shop.
I remember those days.
Yeah,
vividly.
It's crazy. And it's just getting worse and worse.
But then there's still stuff like, because in Nashville, one of the biggest drum stores in the United States is called Forks Drum Closet.
Yeah.
And they have a massive inventory of all kinds of drum gear in the store, and they have an off-site warehouse too. So I'll go dig through their used section all the time and find like the older signature stuff from the 90s.
Nice.
Like the Phil Collins ride or the El Sabor ride that they don't make. I'm like, whatever's on the price tag, I'll pay that.
Yeah,
I want that.
just do it, yeah.
Because if it sounds good and you're going to use it, then it's an investment.
Definitely.
Because it's a set of tools.
Yeah.
If you're an electrician, you can't go in and change an outlet with just a hammer.
Exactly. Yeah, the tools, we're musicians. You might be a musician if you're listening and watching this.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as, sometimes just don't tell the wife how much you spend.
Yeah, that's how we justify it. Well, honey, I needed that 68th snare drum. I'm somewhere around 70 if I haven't surpassed it.
Oh, wow, yeah. I'm nowhere near that.
I mean, a lot of them are collectible pieces.
Yeah.
It's either it serves it serves a purpose or it's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
Like I've got Munetaka Higuchi, rest in peace, the drummer for Loudness from Japan.
Oh wow, yeah.
In Japan, they did 2 signature models for him, and they only released 20 or 25 in the United States. And this is back in 2009, I think.
Wow.
And I had one in my hands and decided, no, I'm going to pay my rent this month.
It is like that with snare drums. Absolutely.
And, back then I was working, but it was tough.
Yeah.
And especially for what they were asking for that thing. But I called a friend of mine in Albuquerque because he was looking for one. And I said, call the store. They've got it. You're welcome. So he bought that. Then maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I got on eBay and it popped up as a saved search.
Nice. Yeah, I know that.
So I was able to snag one.
Brilliant.
So it's little pieces like that that's how I justify it to my wife. I'm like, babe, and she's a musician. She's a guitarist and an artist, and she kind of gets it. If I bring home guitars or basses, there's no argument.
Yeah. No, I understand.
But do you need another snare drum? Yes.
Yes, I need one for this.
Because I've been looking for this carbon fiber pearl free floater for 25 years, and I got one. Now that's checked off the list.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. And I think I got to the point now where I'm happy with most of the things I've got. You always see things and you're like, oh, but that's like half an inch bigger than the one I've got. Maybe that would...
Well, and
can I justify that?
The pain of it too is you're like, yeah, I've got all this stuff, and then, man, I've got no room.
Yeah, it's the space. Then
I always use the same 4 or 5 at a session anyway. So
yeah. I think if I recorded more, I could justify getting a little bit more. But at the moment, I do the odd little bit of session work, but it's mainly recording for this band, and we've 4 or 5. I think on the last album, I used like 6 different snare drums. I didn't have to. I was just experimenting. Yeah, it was fun to get them all out and to tune them all up, and put, it was great because otherwise they just sit on the shelf doing nothing.
Yep.
I bring 3 on the road with me, I have a spare, then a spare.
Yeah.
Just in case this.
Always have a backup for the backup.
Yeah. And that's a very good tip.
Backup for the backup.
Yeah. And then same with pedals. It's always good to have a spare pedal. Sometimes 2 pedals.
Extra bits. It's the little things you don't think of, like tension rods, cymbal felts, the things that you're not going to find in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Hi-hat clutches. I've sheared a few of those over the years.
If you can afford it, bring an extra snare stand and maybe 2 extra cymbal stands.
Yeah.
You know, just little things, and just keep them in the case or keep them in a box completely separate, just so you've got your spares there.
Yeah. Because,
But obviously the pedal you want on stage, the snare you want on stage.
Yeah. I always, on the riser, or at least if I'm lucky to have a tech, he's got them straight there.
Now, your snares, the 3 you bring out, are they all different, or do you have a set of duplicates and then
They are different. They're all the same depth. So if I ever need to do a swap, it's at the same height. Yeah. So that's one thing that's been a recent change, because I'd always take a few snares on the road, but then one would be like 1/2 inch bigger. But now I've got 3 and they're all 14 by 6, which is a good.
This is the first rig where I've ever had a matching pair of snares.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I've got the
acrylic thing.
The acrylic, yes. The acrylic free floaters.
Yeah.
The ruby red.
Nice.
Pearl crystal beat.
Tell us about that.
It's great. It cracks. And I use Evans drum heads. I use a model called the Heavyweight on top, which is like an Emperor X if you're a Remo guy, or I think Aquarian has a similar one. I don't remember what it's called, but it's 2 10 plies and then a 3 mil dot in the center. And it dries up the sound just enough. The great thing with the Heavyweight, though, is straight out of the box, it sounds like it's already acclimated to the drum, like it's been stretched out or whatever. Yeah. So you don't, like with some of those other heads, you got to play them for a day or 2, and then they open up.
Yeah. I know guys that stand on them.
Yeah.
I've never stood on a drum
to
stretch the head in, but I know plenty of guys that do that.
Yeah. That's an old school thing, and that's fine, but nowadays tech, if you have to do that, you're probably playing the wrong heads.
Yeah. That's probably true.
I'd be afraid of the head pulling out of the collar
No.
and sinking into the drum.
Yes, true that. Especially with the fantastic catering on this tour, I wouldn't want to stand on any drums.
Yeah, that German beer.
And the German beer, yeah.
But
it's so good and consistent.
But I used to get back to the snare drum thing.
Yeah.
I used to. I would bring out 2 that were as similar as I could get. Yeah. Like you were saying, but then the third one would be different. I'd have like a wood 5.5 by 14 or 13 or something, just different enough, because mostly back then it was all club shows with different acts. So if you show up with a Canon in a room that you're going to be louder than everything else in the room, swap over to that other drum, and don't be afraid to put a gel or some gaff.
Oh yeah.
If you
never be afraid to do that.
I don't like using gels or gaff. I like the drums wide open, but you also have to think in a musical context.
Yeah, I like for fun, and playing a snare drum completely undampened is so much fun.
Yeah,
the life that you get out of it and the variation of tones is so great. But most of the time, like in my situation, the band members never want all those different tones, and the front of house guys never like it.
Well, and the thing too is, I've got a good enough relationship with the front of house people that we work with that kind of interchange.
Yeah,
that they all know how we tune the drums and how I like them to sound. So if they come up and ask, hey, would you mind putting a gel on that or something? I don't mind.
Yeah.
Because if they're asking me, it's for a specific purpose. Yeah. It's not because they're being lazy.
No, it's to make the show better.
Yeah.
Or at least experimenting to see if doesn't this improve the sound.
And more time often than not, and I learned it in the studio over all the years, is you take a snare drum that's completely flat and sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
Then you go on the other side of glass and listen to playback. It sounds incredible.
Yeah.
because all those overtones and all that stuff's gone, and now you can shape the sound of the drum how you want it, as opposed to have to work around those tones or fight it.
Yeah.
But then again, every song, every scenario is different.
Yeah.
Every room's different. Every stage is different. So yeah, I was just curious.
I think that's really good advice. And yeah, like the other night we did a small club show, and instead of using my main bronze snare, I thought, should we just try the Beechwood one tonight for a laugh? And it was great. And I thought,
Is it your Sonor?
Yeah, I am. Okay. Yeah. So it was just like, I asked the front of house guy, should we try a different snare tonight? And he was like, yeah, why not? So it's just more fun to try something different. And
it gives you a different energy too.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Put up a different ride or a different snare drum. I mean, and that could be the only thing. You put up a different snare drum on the exact same kit, and it makes you play different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're playing does affect how you feel. If I play big sizes, 24 kick, 12, 13, 16, 18, that's what I play with this band. But if I was to play, a 20, 12, 14 setup, I'd play totally different.
Yeah.
It just influences
the
sound of the drums and the way they're set up. It just totally influences the way you play. And I think for someone like yourself, you've got a lot of experience playing different genres more than me. I can imagine that's even more accentuated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's as soon as you hear the music for the gig, it's like, okay, that's going to be the Birch kit.
Yeah.
Or, that's the reference kit that I'll bring, or I'll bring the Maple kit. I'm very fortunate enough to have a collection.
Nice, yeah.
From over the years. And plus I'm a pack rat when it comes to gear. So all those little broken cymbal tilters, I still have them.
Yeah.
Because I can machine a new part for it. I'm handy in that way.
Yes. This is what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about your drum riser and your rack system, because it is quite unique. I don't see different things like that. So like Google, if you're listening to this or watching this, just Google Christopher, and you'll probably see him playing a photo of your drums, the cymbals that are like hanging.
The hanging. So that rack was introduced just on that last European tour we did together.
Oh, cool.
I built that over the summer in between festival runs. We'd be here for a few weeks, go home, come back. And I did that at my friend Tim's fabrication shop. He taught me how to weld, kind of guided me through that one. And then I had the design that I have in the States, which is even nuttier than that one. It's a replica of the rack Randy Castillo used in 1988 and 89 with Ozzy on the No Rest for the Wicked tour, but it's chromed out as opposed to Randy's was black. And I tweaked some stuff here and there more so it would work for me. That was,
Yeah.
But it's the hanging kick drums like you used to see. There were two guys in the 80s that were known for building that type of system. There was Tom Falcon out of Florida, and he was known more for building racing chassis, and he would do custom stuff for NASA.
Whoa.
He had a contract with them. And the West Coast guy in Southern California was a guy named Greg Volker. He had more of the racks coming out back then because a lot of the bands you'd see were from LA using them. So they all had them. John Douglas with Kit Tracy had one. Randy Castillo had one. Nick Menza was the guy that made those really famous.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Tommy Aldridge had one and then built his own custom one for the 89, for the Slip of the Tongue tour. Was at 90, I think, 89, 90.
Wow.
Bunch of guys. Nico had a version of the Volker rack, but without the hanging kick drum.
Oh, right.
It was just a rack that just plugged into the deck.
That is pretty cool.
Alex Van Halen had a couple of them built like that. So. But, it's not rocket science.
No.
It's a pretty straight ahead design, but I couldn't find anybody to build me one for years and years and years. And finally, our bass player, Martin, had introduced me to Tim. And Tim goes, oh, yeah, I'll teach you how to MIG. It's really not that difficult. And, you get the material, I'll teach you how to weld, and then you just pay me a fee to use the shop and get to it. And I did.
Yeah.
busted my butt, especially on that second one. If you see photos, we used it on the U.S. tour last year with KK's Priest.
Right.
And it's a mirror balled kit where I mirror balled all the shells, cut the glass and everything.
Whoa.
But there's coming across the front of the kicks, there's two curves that come down. There's a flat spot, and then it curves back up to the back. The front two curves, that was a 10-foot stick of tubing, and that was 5 hours rolling it manually.
Wow.
And the same with the back two curves. I'll show you photos. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It went from being this massive long pipe to this radius about this wide. And then we just found the spots that fit the best, chopped it out, tacked it, kept building.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, we were home for 2.5 weeks, and that one took right at 2 weeks to do. So a lot of time, a lot of energy, but
it'll last a long time.
It was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'd wanted to do that design for so long because I grew up seeing those on MTV, and then they disappeared and nobody was doing them.
Yeah.
And this guy in California that I discovered in 2008 had a company called Level Rack, and he was doing them, and then he stopped doing the welded ones and started making this design where you can use off the shelf rack components. So I had one of those from him, and he's like, yeah, let me know whenever you want to do the custom rack. And I'm like, hey man, let's do it. No, I'm not doing those anymore. Follow up a few years later, Tony, hey man, let's do that rack. No, I'm not doing them anymore. And then, you know, if you can't find somebody else to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Learn how to weld and build your own.
I can't see me. Loads of people leave comments on my drum pits and they go get a rack, dude. Why don't you get a rack? I've just never really tried, apart from with like electronic kits where it all comes pre-done.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never really, I don't know, I've just never seen the appeal of it. But I guess you get that consistency.
That's the main
thing, isn't it? Yeah. And I just think the level we are at touring, sometimes we're in the trailer, sometimes we've got to cram it all into the back of a van. And we do a lot of fly-out shows where I don't get to use my own kit.
Yeah.
In which case, all that goes out the window anyway, because you've just got to use something else.
Well, and with your kit, you know, the tripods, you don't have a ton of them up there.
Not too much.
I would say, if anything, if you were going to do a rack, I would do like the stealth rack, they call it, where it's just the side racks.
Okay, yeah.
Because you've got your mounted toms. Are you offset? You're offset from the kick, right?
The toms are, yeah.
Yeah.
So one kick.
You could either just use your double tom stand like is, and then have the two side racks and just mount your cymbal stands, any of your other components like trap table or I don't know if y'all are using a click or anything. I don't know.
No, maybe not.
I don't think so.
These days, no. We did. I think we attempted it for a few shows on the tour with you guys for the first time ever, but we've gone back to zero click now.
Good.
I quite enjoyed doing it. I thought it actually improved my sense of timing after playing so many years.
Relax.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
You know.
It does, yeah. Like I think yesterday I felt like you get a lot of adrenaline in playing in front of big crowds. And yesterday, like I felt like I was playing everything nice and steady and slow. And I watched the footage back, and I was like, "Wow, was it really that fast?"
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't super fast. I think because I was trying to play them extra slow. The reality was, they were still okay.
Yeah.
But I've done gigs before where I felt like they were okay and they were actually super fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit.
That adrenaline gets you, man.
Yeah, but it happens to the whole band, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you can have different approaches to it. Like some guys will have them up there and just give themselves 8 bars and cut it off or something just to set in the groove. And then, and, you know, and every situation's different. Like with you guys, you know, if the band wants to move, let it run.
Yeah, that's how they feel.
There's no
generally.
use holding it back. Like, just go. And especially if the audience is throwing all that energy at you and they you feel like, all right, we're gonna go.
Yeah,
just go.
Just go. Yeah.
Let the horses run, man.
And that's what we've been doing for like 10 years. And the only reason we tried it, you know, last year was because it was basically, obviously, I joined the tour after Paul was playing. and I was playing the song slightly different to how he was. So I was like, well, the only way to really solve this is to try going on a click.
Yeah.
So we're going to get that consistency. And yeah, you know, we did it for like 70% of the set, and some of the songs just wouldn't work.
You can't use a click on spades.
No.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work, no.
It's not, I mean, you could, but it's not fun.
It's not, yeah, it's no fun. I've played that song so fast sometimes, and I love it.
You wished you had played it on a click.
Yeah. I remember we did a support slot, again, it was a 30 minutes set, I think, maybe, and I saw the clock, and it only said like 3 minutes to go, and I was like, this is our last song. And I'm like, I'm just going to play it fast as fuck.
Come on, Tyler.
Yeah.
We're going. Let's go.
I know I can do it. It's just hopefully everyone else can do it as well. But yeah, tempos is interesting. You know, each to their own.
Yeah.
Your band might, you know, sometimes the clicks are needed. If there's tracks involved, videos, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
And I've never really done that. I don't know if you guys do a bit of that.
We've got it for some channel switching and the vocal gates and some of the lights.
There you go, yeah. So
video, whenever we have access to the video walls, sometimes we'll put some things in. But
yeah, and you know, it's great. But yeah, it's a big topic. We could do a whole podcast about click tracks, but let's not do that.
The big thing too is like, just with clicks in general, it's not a bad thing. I know so many people out there, purists, and that's cool, man. That's great. You know, like with Elegant Weapons, we had, which is my band with Richie Faulk.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Dave Rimmer and Ronnie Romero, the amazing Ronnie Romero.
Yes.
We had a couple songs that had B3 parts that would fly in off the Roland. So that show was probably like 4 songs on a click and the others not.
Right.
And I still had a click in there for the ones we didn't, because I had it in setlist mode on the Roland, the SX Pro. And I could look back, and if I wanted to get a click reference, cool. If not, go.
Yeah.
So I've done gigs where the whole thing's on a click. I've done gigs where there's no click at all. I've done it where it's a bit of both. It really just depends on your situation, what the band wants, or, you know, if you're contracted to an artist, what does the artist want?
Yeah,
especially if they're using sequences and backing and video, like you said, and lights and all that. Learn how to play with it. Play on top of it so you don't even hear it.
Yeah.
Play behind it. Play in front of it. So it feels a bit faster, but it's really not, you know.
That's good advice.
Learn how to work with it.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the most amazing things I got out of. I marched drum and bugle corps outside high school, and that's where you really learn to play with a click.
I can imagine, actually. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're in rehearsal and they've got a Dr. Beat, the Boss DB90 or whatever, pumping through this loudspeaker right behind you at 110, 120 decibels, tearing your head off. And there's 10 of you in the snare line trying to listen for phasing and seeing who's out, who's where. And then you really learn how to move in and around with a metronome.
I can imagine that is the best way of getting your ass kicked.
Yeah. It was great, you know, and for so many other reasons too. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those, a lot of people are afraid of using the metronome. I think a lot of it too is because it exposes your flaws.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which, you know, sorry, but that's reality.
That's how you get better.
Own your flaws and work on them, you know, practice your flaws.
Yeah.
Don't make that your life.
Don't avoid them.
But you know, adapt, overcome, as they say.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah, great. Well,
just make the music.
I think we've probably both got to go and hit things. I don't know if you're hit. I've got to hit things, definitely.
I don't.
You don't have to.
I trust him to do it.
But yeah, this has been so much fun. We could probably do another hour, but I'm not going to do another hour. Maybe a part 2 in the future.
Yeah. Love to.
But like the way I always end this is to ask you a question that all my guests have to answer. And you've played with a lot of people, so I don't know what you're going to say about this. If you could play drums for a made-up band of members, dead or alive, who would play the other instruments?
Well, Steve Marriott from Humble Pie would be my singer.
Nice.
And rhythm player.
Cool.
And B3 and harmonica.
That's a cool answer.
Steve Marriott. I'd say Jimi Hendrix on the other guitar, because that would just, the two of them, that would be rad.
Yeah.
That would be great. Who do I have on bass? James Jamerson.
Oh yeah, interesting. That would be very cool.
If we're talking about like who can we get to make the ultimate badass band?
Yeah, that's the idea of the question. And I like those answers.
And,
I think Jimmy's probably come up a few times, but not the other guys.
And well, Steve's going to be doing B3, I guess. Yeah, I was trying to come up with keys because I would love to have a B3 in there, but yeah.
Awesome.
That would be the shit.
Yeah. That would be fantastic. Oh, cool. Well, thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we managed to squeeze it in, and hopefully it doesn't sound too shit. I know there was some background noise earlier on, and that's what rock and roll is like.
It just shows you that we are, in fact, live at a concert.
Yeah.
So,
which is a very cool way of doing it. But hello there, Christopher.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Drum for the Song podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Drum for the Song podcast. If you've enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave me a review or comment, that would be fantastic too, as it helps other people discover this show. Please also consider sharing this with any family members or friends who might enjoy the content. You can also follow me on social media at Dane_drums or at Drum for the Song, or search for Drum for the Song on Facebook to follow the page and join the official Facebook group. If you'd like to support the podcast, you could purchase some merchandise from drumforthesong.com, or consider supporting me via Patreon from just £3 per month for additional exclusive content like bonus episodes, video calls with myself, competitions, discounts, and much more. Any additional support is always greatly appreciated, but I would like to give extra special thanks to my top tier Groove Master patrons, whose names are listed in the description below. My name is Dane Campbell, and thanks so much for watching or listening this far. If you're a drummer, don't forget to drum for the song.